We need to acknowledge the changes that we are going through as humanity. And we need to acknowledge our entrance into the Aquarian age, which is very, very huge for us now. And so as part of this, we are moving into a new age, into a new world, whether we want to or not, whether we like to or not. And in this video, I'm going to be giving you a message that actually comes from an astrologer, Steve Judd. He made a video back in December 2021 giving a message about something related to moving into a new world. And that something is eschatology. Eschatology deals with, all of the old patterns that we have been living with. I mean, all of the old negative, the dark pieces of humanity as a whole that has not worked for us, that we are changing around. That we are flipping around, changing our world, and we are ending humanity. And as a species, all of the history that has taken place over since millennia is going to come to an end. And I'm going to get into that. Now, I have kind of an idea that, I saw this video back in March of 2022. And, when I saw this video, when I heard this video, when I heard kind of towards the end of the video, I had this vision of the local Walmart store that I go to. And I had this vision of the very, very first thing I saw was like you go and you see the ice boxes, like when you open the door, then there's ice in there that you can put in there. And over the years, it kind of came together. And I remember doing something like this in summer 2022, and now I'm doing it officially here. So, the idea for living in a Walmart. Like, think about this. You're living in a Walmart, and everybody is psychically sensitive to each other, psychically attuned and empathetic towards each other. They're very, very, everyone is hyper aware of every single person's vibration. And if somebody's vibration would be very, very low, and they would come from a very, very low place of ego and greed and wanting control and wanting to perpetuate all of the hunger and the sadness and the despair in the world, then they would be going into the icebox and they would be trapped there until their vibration raises, until they've had time to reflect, and then the person takes them out and then they, become a different person. So that's kind of, the idea that I have for this. And I'm going to go into a written message. I paraphrase some of this because to sit through the entire video and go through that takes way too long. So I had to paraphrase some of this. But this is kind of a long message, so bear with me with this. I don't know how long this podcast is going to be, but we will see. So let me begin with this message. The first part of it I wrote down word for word, but then I kind of paraphrased it. And Steve Judd was actually reading this off of probably somebody who sent something to him, or I don't know exactly where he got this information, but it is from him, and I want to give credit where credit is due. I don't want to, claim this as my own thing. So, but I will discuss it in more depth. I will go through this and discuss the points as they come up with what I have to say about these things as they come up to really, really get into this message rather than just reading it for you. Because this is a profound message. So let me begin. If the truth can be told so that it can be understood, it will be believed. So if we can understand all this is going on, then we will believe it and we will come to a great achievement. So then it goes on. Human history represents such a break with the natural system as a biological evolution that preceded it. So, we're talking, I'm thinking Neanderthals, or I'm thinking, the dinosaurs, or those kind of things like that, where, we got started and then we got, on a kind of hamster wheel of all these negative things that I go into. But it must be some type of mutation, some type of exception to the normal systems of planetary development and evolution. Unlike any other species that has ever existed, humanity can anticipate futures, see patterns developing, and make conscious choices. Like, this is who we are. We are not just animals that, have, their traits and characteristics. Like, we have, we can foresee into the future, and we can use sound judgment to make, like, okay, I have this idea, and I'm going to make it happen. Or being able to, say this pattern is not working out for me in my life, so I'm going to change it. Or collectively, this pattern in history is not working out. It hasn't served us. So we are making the choice to do something different. We're making the choice to move in a new direction. And so that is, who we are as, humanity. Is that we can, and the point of history is to, learn from our past mistakes. Like, we go through history and all the wars and all the genocide and all that stuff. Like, this is really, the message is really about history and how it is, how we have kind of failed as humanity, and what we need to do to revolutionize it and make it better and improve it and do better in the future and move towards the age of Aquarius. And this message is sort of harboring us into the age of Aquarius. Kind of, we're moving into the age of Aquarius now, and I have a whole nother podcast about the age of Aquarius, and this is kind of an add-on to that. This is another thing that goes with that. For the first time ever, the evolution of a species has been placed on the species itself, us. So it's up to us to change the world. It's up to us to make a better future. We can continue in our morally downward spiral, warring on each other, perpetually trying to be bigger, better, stronger, and not caring about our relationship with nature, our planet, our sensitivity, our conscience, our integrity, and our sense of spirituality. Like, how we have mistreated us and ourselves into the future, how we have denied the feminine qualities of compassion, empathy, and spirituality, and all these things, and denied our sense of sensitivity for each other and our love for each other, because we want to be strong. We want to be almighty and powerful. We want to be the king of the hill or the top of the mountain, or we want to be, the best person, in the world, and that becomes most important to us as opposed to a more equal horizontal structure and sharing of humanity. So this is how we have, failed, where we have abused the earth. We have killed, animals for food. We have, destroyed, with global warming. I mean, and right now, okay, Some of the stuff I'm going to get into in this video is a little bit controversial. I'm just going to tell you that right now. But I'm not going to hold back. I'm not going to apologize with the opinions that I have on these kind of things. So, all right. So moving on. Or we can go beyond. The real truth is that history has failed. I'm going to say that for 12,000 years we have been lied to and force-fed divisive conditioning, and all the conditioning of believing certain things, or you must do this and you must not follow your own intuition, your own soul. Like we've been so conditioned to rely on the external authority outside of us for our guiding principles of life, of what we need to do, of what we need to grow into, what we need to become in order to survive in the world. Just survive in the world. Like we rely on them to make decisions for us and basically rule our lives. And that is the conditioning of of all of that when it comes to so many things that I'm not going to even begin to go into here. That has been very very divisive in nature. Designed to alienate us from our true birthright, that we are naturally and powerfully psychic. That is true. Like we can sense energy. We can lean into our intuition. Like to be psychic is to sense the energy going off around us, sense the vibrations of everything, and sense tap into our intuition, our inner knowing. Like we are, we think psychics are these people who are in these, positions where they can do this in a very, very special way, and they have, seances and a crystal ball or, whatever. But it's not that way. We are psychic already. We are all psychic. But we haven't been conditioned. We've been conditioned out of tapping into that part of us that is psychic. So psychics see beyond just what is the five senses. Like we have been conditioned into a material reality. Seeing, all these things, the food, the material stuff, like conditioned into the material reality, that we have not gone beyond what is just beyond our five senses and gone beyond something much deeper, much more profound than that, much more spiritual than that. When it comes to the immaterial, the invisible, our higher self, the universe, the invisible forces that sort of flow between and within us all, so that's what it comes down to. When it comes to that, okay, so from birth, we've been limited, restricted, conditioned, and shaped by a kind of dominator culture that seeks to impose the lower common denominator of us all. So it's pulling us down, these dominators, like these people in power, like, and this is what I'm going to go into with this. I have some things to say about the war of Russia and Ukraine and, Putin, right now, and, his leadership. And then in America, our president, which I think that a lot of people who voted for him are really regretting their decision. Because it's like, all these false promises that you made, you didn't deliver on. And somebody who just is so egoic and so narcissistic and just wants power and, more and more power. Like these are the dominators. They want more power. And this president wants more power. And he will do anything in his power to keep running up again for presidency and keep running up for being president and being in control. Like, he is an example of what I am considering here as a dominator. This podcast is where I share ideas uninhibitedly. Like, I am uninhibited on this podcast, so I know that politics is very, very controversial. But if it does come up, I will talk about it because I feel strongly about it. Some may disagree. Some will agree. Because the world is not a black and white place. There's going to be some that are really going to agree with all this stuff, and some that will not. That's just how it is. The power over ones, and then the top down, and then the ones who believe in freedom and equality. You can't put a message out that the whole world is going to agree with. So don't even try. Some will agree with this, some will not. I think most will, though. After the years when the following grows and more people check out this content. So anyway, okay. So herd mentality. Just go along to get along. Follow the herd, don't stand out, don't do your own thing, don't take risks, don't be an individual. Don't go on your own path, don't march to the beat of your own drum, go along with what everybody else is doing. Has become the norm, whether it be to gender. If you're a certain gender, then there are these rules, and then there are these conditions that you must follow. Color, oh my gosh, racism. If you're this race, you should be doing these things, and you should be living this life. That's very, very limiting. Because you shouldn't do that based off of gender or color. That is wrong. That is just wrong. Because everyone is an individual, and the color of somebody's skin and the way that somebody talks has nothing to do with who they really are and what their soul really wants in this lifetime. Religion, race, it sets the boundaries. And I'm going to get into religion a little bit later. Power over. I talked about this in my Age of Aquarius video. Power over. This whole thing about wanting power. I'm right, you're wrong. I'm stronger than you, so I'm going to dominate you. That's the whole thing. And this is sort of an invitation for us. This whole message is an invitation to move into the Age of Aquarius. Power over has been the key to progress in the material world, instead of power with and power within. So, again, relying on external authority instead of our own inner sense of autonomy and authority within ourselves. And we're leaning more into that. The inner authority is coming from us as individuals. What feels right for us? What is right for us? We are becoming more aware of that, and we are tapping into that. And it is up to us to really, follow that intuitive calling to go in that direction. So, fear, paranoia, sin, sex, and guilt are the tools by which the dominators seek to maintain their control. I think that explains quite a bit. The placebos of cars, computers, televisions, money. I did a whole thing about money. I did a whole, thing about the spiritual side of money where I really voiced my opinions. Are the droplets of appeasement designed to enmesh humanity in an ever-deepening morass. Not my words. I would never just use that word. It's not my words. Of, materialism leading to even ever greater divisions between the haves and the have-nots. We've been conditioned, into lack. We need to have something in order to feel good about ourselves, in order to feel worthy or at peace or prosperous. We need to have all these material things. We need to have enough money to be worthy and to be, a beacon for light and a beacon for good in the world, and someone who is, up there and right, I will say. So we've been trained to needing to have money to feel, safe and, secure, for our own survival. And that's kind of how this world works, unfortunately. That we live in. And only, that probably won't change, but if we could just reframe all of our conditioning around money, just all of our, stuff around money into something more positive, into something more spiritual, which is why I did the video on the spiritual side of money, which you can go check out in this podcast if you want more information on that. Over the millennial, religion has been the single strongest tool in the hands of the dominators. Now, what is religion but you're projecting your religion onto others? Like, if you're not careful, you can do this. Because everybody has their own spiritual belief, and you impose this belief this is, my belief, and it's, the best, belief, and the highest belief, and the most wise belief, and it's the only belief, when there are, more than one, belief, where, imposing centuries of hardship and division, like religions cause, division among people, where we are divided, because we're not unified. Like in that song, the Imagine song by, I think, Bob Dylan, one of the lyrics said, if we could have a world without religion. And, because religion caused divide, because there's one belief system and another belief system, and the world could be a very, very simple place, but it's very complex, because we've made it very, very complex. So, resulting in inconceivable differences worldwide, with regard to what constitutes truth. Since the beginning of time, dominator philosophy has sought to isolate people, and in their vulnerability, imposed behavioral attitudes, and ideas, that we must follow. Imposing all these rules and restrictions that we must follow. Very, very top down. Like you can think about Pluto and Capricorn and, the top down, structures like people in power we were looking at. People in power, digging up all the secrets of the rich and powerful, and getting into our own inner authority. That's what Pluto and Capricorn was. It's tapping into our own inner authority and leading from our own inner authority with our own goals, with our own, autonomy within ourselves, and not relying so much on the external. That was the kind of lesson that we've been working through with Pluto moving through Capricorn and all the secrets that it's dug up with that. But now that's behind us, and we will never, ever see it again. We will never experience it again. So, we are in the new age now. All religions are based on the notion of disempowering individuals. Instead of, empowering you to follow your own inner teacher and your own form of spirituality, like your own intuition, your own inner compass, your own higher self, you're taught to follow, these are the rules that you must follow. These are the commandments. These are all the things. And if you don't, then you are not a worthy person. You are not a good spiritual person. And that is so not true. That is so not true. Because, our spirituality is in our intuition. I don't want to make it complicated with multiple religions, nor do I want to project that. Like, when I say God, I don't mean just Christianity alone, although, I am a Christian and I will, claim that. But it is more of a broad thing where it can be God or whatever you call your higher power. That's not disempowering. Like religions can disempower us, bringing them to a mental state of where blind obedience is the order of the day. Blind obedience. This is Sagittarius South Node of just blindly following this religious, faith and not questioning, what does this mean to me? Like, is this true for me? Is this religion right for me? Like you're blindly obeying by this religion without going in and tapping into your intuition and questioning, is this truly right for me? Is this, will this serve me in my life? So, for 10,000 years, they promised us utopia, and they delivered a toxic, polluted, overpopulated planet. Enough is enough. And I don't know if Steve Judd said this or it was written out. I'm assuming it was written out. All theologies have the notion of a kind of end of the world built into them. Like we are conditioned, like the end of the world is coming. Oh, it's the end of the world. Not. Because as you're going to see, this is not the end of the world. This is the end of history as we know it. This is the end of the world as we know it, but not the end of the earth and the world. Other factors have to come into play, like other scientific, biological, factors and, factors from, space and the sun or whatever to truly end our world. It is not like that. In the sense of summing up, the totality of human knowledge and experience is what is, as a species, we are going through right now. So we're at the end of an era. We are at the end of a chapter, and we are moving into something new. We are in the final state. I'm filming this in 2026, and we are in the final stages of that. Moving on. We are at the end of history, not at the end of the world. We are privileged to have been born at the greatest time of compressed change that we or our ancestors have ever known. And that change is happening now, in our hearts and minds, our attitudes towards ourselves, each other, and this beautiful planet that we are so blessed to inhabit. So, we are waking up to this empowering part of us that can change our lives, that can change humanity, that can do our individual part to change humanity. And we're waking up to our potential, our strength, our capabilities, our abilities. And the fact that we are interconnected with everyone and everything and each other. We're waking up to we are remembering our connection with everyone and everything. And our connection with our planet. So, and that's what the dominators are scared of. That's what the dominators are really scared of, is us finding out how powerful we really are. Like the dominators do not want us to be empowered to be our authentic selves. They are, and make decisions from our own integrity. There's a word for it that I'm not thinking about. I used it in my podcast the other day on Northern areas. I just cannot think of the word that I used for that. But anyway, they're scared of this. We're witnessing an end of time culture where the younger generations have not been pushed down. So our generation, like we're talking my generation. I am Gen Z. I was born at, around the time of the millennium. I am, a part of the new generation. This generation has not been pushed down the same roads of belief and conditioning as, I want to say we have not been pushed down the same roads of belief, and conditioning that our parents and grandparents before have been conditioned into. I kind of used that word twice, but anyway. As a result, they grew up more aware of their intuition, more aware of, their inner senses, their inner guidance, which, Sonia Choquette talks about, and Eckhart Tolle, and all these spiritual, individuals who talk about all of these very, very important things. Their empathic and telepathic potentials, their sensitivity, and their awareness of what is truly right and wrong. No, not relying on others to tell you this is right and this is wrong. Relying on their own inner selves to tell them this is right and this is wrong, because it's not based off of, like, we're so trained into, the logical mind. Like, this is only right and wrong if it follows the rules of logic. Well, actually, no. It is just a feeling. Like, does this truly feel right and wrong inside my intuition? That's worth considering. We as individuals and as a planet are waking up to living a life with a greater sense of integrity. Truth about ourselves. In all cultures throughout time, there have been men and women who have dared to dream about the future, to go into areas of mystery, imagination, in defiance of society's conditions. We see, Harriet Tubman, we see, Martin Luther King Jr. as an example of this, who, fought for, freedom between, freedom for blacks. We see this with so many, where they have dared to dream a new future that is more equal, that is more just, that is more kind, that is more compassionate, that is more unconditionally loving. Now, they could be shamans or witches or healers. They seek to empower the future. They seek to empower the future, and map out the readiness of that future for species evolution. We are all our own inner shaman, where we can intuitively upgrade our inner circuitry. We can expand to new areas of our brain that are ahead of our current comprehension, where our destiny lies in the not-so-distant future, like stretching ourselves to take risks that we never dare to do. Like all these people telling us, you can't do this, you're not enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not worthy enough of being able to do this, But then it's about believing in yourself that, yes, I can do it. I can act on it. I can, pursue this because I genuinely want to. And you know what? It feels right to do this. So, that's kind of what I'm saying. So the planet is actually interacting with us through our own psychic experiences, group sharing, crop circles, or world opinion. So nature is interacting with us, sending us these messages. Nature is sending us a message, and that is to transform our systems of communication. So how we talk, because, how we talk impacts others, and the words that we say really truly has an impact on others. So how we communicate, how we share information is going to be very, very important to make sure it's more, open, more considerate of the other, more liberating, and more empowering. So for 2,000 years, we've somehow survived through a very restricted and limited way of life, where we have denied our intuition, our imagination, and our inner true feelings. We have been living a lie designed by society for the sake of our survival, and now it really is time to move on into a world better designed for intuition, femininity. Into a world defined by our own empathetic sensitivity and compassion, and by intuitively what just feels right for us. It's very, very simple. And, it's not about ego. We're letting go of being stuck in, the ego mind, with, needing to that external self is the only thing, and separating between us and the other, and what makes us different, instead of what brings us together, instead of what makes us connected and similar. Like, we're letting go of the ego. Like, yes, the ego is very, very important, but we are allowing the soul to lead our lives more so. The ego serves the soul. The ego is supposed to serve the soul when moving through life. And and by intuitively just feels right. Just that's very, very important. And we will find ourselves in the middle of a telepathic community where individual privacy will still be the norm. Like we will, respect our privacy. We will respect our sovereign selves. Like we will not just interfere and just merge into everyone. And take away their rights and their right of property and whatever. Like that is still important. Like this is the Walmart example that I was talking about at the very beginning, but with the bonus of higher empathic resonance, making it impossible for anyone to harbor violence, malice, without it being impossible to lower their vibration. Like we will be so tuned into what others say and others do, and we will be tuned into how it affects us on a psychic, spiritual, intuitive level. Like we will be trained into what will raise or lower our vibration. That's what we will be kind of trained into, and we'll be more aware of that at this time. So the result has already taken hold. From the confusion and previously destructive patterns dissolve. So the previous it kind of explains that. So we can resist these changes, or we can embrace them to create a more positive future, possible future, than we have ever dared to dream. So we have, this is a critical choice point for humanity. We can either resist all these changes of all these things happening, inviting us to move into the new age, into the new era, or we can choose to follow the song, A Million Dreams from The Greatest Showman, and the message of that song is to dare to dream a world that hasn't been invented before, and to make your world our world in a place that you genuinely want it to be. It either can be very, very divisive and very divided, or it can be one of peace and love and all these higher states of being. So, all right. So we are at a point where, through dance, movement, and sensuality, we can find out what our true purpose on this planet is. The key to reaching the awareness of who we really are and what is going around us in our name is by dealing with our quote-unquote stuff. And part of that is dealing with our shadows, dealing with our what we have going on in our own personal issues and our own personal spiritual things to work through within ourselves, like our relationship patterns, our negative habit patterns, our wounds, our own shadows, as opposed to just taking it out on others and projecting it onto others. We're taking responsibility for these things and we're dealing with it internally, as opposed to just like, this is what I'm going on. I am just, maybe we're becoming more aware and conscious of what we project into others, and not unconsciously just getting out of the habit of unconsciously projecting all this stuff onto others. And accepting ourselves as being who we are, warts and all. We are never going to be good enough. Like accepting ourselves as we are, not giving into this conditioning that we are not good enough, or we are not good enough, like this self-criticism, like we're moving away, we are having more compassion for ourselves and acceptance for ourselves that we are enough. But we are always getting better, so don't ever stop trying. It is about the effort or the goal that is required of us. It is not about the effort or the goal that is required of us. It doesn't have to do with that. It is the attempt that invokes the future. So it's just, can we just try doing this? We don't have to, totally succeed or, be the best at it, but at least we can try. Like, at least we can consciously be aware and make an effort to get in there and change our own experience and the experience of the world. So our current world, which started in the 60s, like you think about the age of Aquarius and the hippie movement and the song that this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, maturing in the 80s and wildly since the year, it says 1999, but I'm going to say 2000, which is like, the millennia, is approaching its peak. So now we're at the peak stage of all this is coming to a head. All this is coming to a climactic point. All these lessons of history that we have learned are being eclipsed, if that's the right word for it. Are reaching a peak point. We are seeing all these lessons very, very, very critically, and all these patterns and all these issues, where now we can say, enough is enough and we're moving on. So, from our reference, the peak now is between the years 2019 to 2026, and we're in the final year of that right now, of this transition. This is not a drill. This is a prime time that ourselves and the lives of our ancestors have been building towards. So we've been building towards this for a long time. It's a time when we will all be more accountable for our conscience, our honesty, our integrity, and then asked to move on to a better future, like ever, that has never been before on the planet Earth. There will be an evolutionary leap, the likes of which we have never seen before. There will be an acceleration of population and technology, and that graph curve is not linear. It's exponential. Like, it goes up and down, it'll go up and it'll go down, and all that kind of thing like that. So, and we're approaching prime vertical. So do we collapse in on ourselves, as perhaps happened 2,000 years ago? Or do we go beyond the existing boundaries, where the multidimensional future contains limits only bound by the imagination? Like, not bound by the external, like the authorities are not telling us this is the thing. Like, the only boundary is what we can just imagine. Like, think about that. Think of living in a world like that, where the only boundary is how far our imaginations can take us. Like, in this world, the sky is the limit. The sky is truly the limit. The timelines are drawing in, the options are running out, the fences are coming down. Do we acquiesce to the dominators and become even more insane, to the ruining of the earth, of nature, the suppression of the feminine, and the spiritually bankrupt policies, like these things that take away our own sense of individuality when it comes to our own spirituality and what's true for us? Or do we fear, or do we tear the fear and the conditions that the governments and the dominators have imposed upon us? Do we break up, all of this fear and choose to go in our own path and, go against these dominators that have restricted us? Or do we move ahead into a cleaner world of our own making? A world unpopulated by power, secure in our own sense of individuality, yet aware in our rule, our function, what we are meant to do as human souls living a human experience, our space, like being allowed to take up space, like, claiming us taking up space, and our society having a society based on love, community, consciousness, expansion, empathy, and sensuality and sensitivity to our environment. Because if these things are not part of our future, what kind of future is it going to be? So we really have to ask ourselves, like, if we do not have, if we're not connected in community, if we don't have empathy and unconditional love for each other, and a deep concern with our environment, and a deep compassion for our environment, then what kind of world are we going to be living in? Seriously. For thousands of years, and I wonder if this video is going to be as popular as my Age of Aquarius video was, because I saw some very, very well-written, profound, detailed comments under that video. I did not realize it would get as popular as it would. All right. So for thousands of years, our ancestors sat around the campfire, dreaming of a time when the purpose of our existence would be understood. So like the ancestors, you can think of Native Americans, or just at the beginning of time when they sat around, they had when humanity was fresh, when it was not with all these wars and all the government and all these things, when they had these dreams. And what happened to all those dreams? What happened to all those great ideas and dreams? Well, history happened, and humanity happened, and all this stuff happened. So, okay. We want to prove to our ancestors that we as humanity have redeemed ourselves in all that truly resides in us all. So all the things that we have done wrong, we are redeeming ourselves now. So don't succumb to the bullies and the dominators. You are the center of the universe that you will ever really know. Like you are the sole center of your universe. You know yourself more than anyone else knows who you are. And your life is more, others' lives are very, very important. To think of others and be awareness is very, very important. But your life, I'm just gonna say it, is more important because you're living this life on your own in this human body, and you're the center of your universe. It's our world. And we are rapidly approaching a time of intelligence, but love for ourselves and others that is unconditional, communicative, and where unconditional love, communication, and global community is its basic root structures. These are the final few years of history as we have known it. The countdown is now. This is not a test. Now, this is what it says. By the end of 2026, the scene will be set, and the die will be cast for a new world, as Steve Judd said. But I'm saying we will officially be living in a new reality, the like of which we can only hint at this moment. Like, we only have a glimpse of this new reality, but just imagine, years from now how it's going to be. And we have Neptune moving into Aries. We're becoming more individualistic and sovereign and courageous when it comes to expressing our spiritual principles, and compassion and empathy for others is going to be, we're going to be more assertive about compassion and empathy and our intuitive connection. Like, we're going to be assertive when it comes to all these kind of things with Neptune, in Aries. With Uranus and Gemini, the technology is going to speed up. New systems of communication. It's going to be revolutionary. Pluto and Aquarius. We're looking at how technology has served us and has not served us with AI and all those kind of things, and really, really getting close to what takes away our humanity and what technologies do not take away our humanity. And and also, AI is a real, real big thing now, and just imagine 20 years later what the world is going to look like. Wow, very, very different place. That's just mind blowing to me. And I will still I will still probably be alive, probably doing this by that point when I'm 40 years old. I imagine I'll still be doing this when I'm 40. So just imagine that. And we'll be living in a more horizontal reality. We'll be more freedom and equality and equity. And everyone will be living, a life where we are being our own authentic selves and individual selves. Yet in the Aquarian age, we are, respecting each other as they are, and thinking of humanity and being collaborative and understanding, community spirit and doing all that. So we'll officially be living in a new reality. It's the end of history, and the future really is in our imagination. Don't we really owe it to our past to make our future part of our story? Like, we can write a new story. We can, start a new story and, build from the ground up again. We can start over and turn a page in our story and, do all that. So I thought I might read this and go through this information. I really hope that you found some value out of this podcast. And if you did, you can share it. I think there's a way to share podcasts on Spotify and, on YouTube or wherever you're watching this. Listening to this, I don't have really any followers on Spotify right now. As far as I've checked, I'm probably the only one listening to my things on Spotify. But anyway, the next podcast that I plan to do, coming up very, very soon, is the one on Jupiter and Capricorn. I just wanted to get this done and out of the way first so that I could focus on the Jupiter and Capricorn podcast, which is going to be a very, very different subject matter than this. I think it's high time that I make this, and I think good thing I'm making this now, because we're almost at the end of 2026, and so it's, the time to do this is now. So I'm glad that I switched over to doing videos, whenever I feel like it, and additional videos besides the planned videos. So I do not regret making that decision, and so anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this podcast. And bye for now, everybody.